The scent of burned cedar lingered above the rooftops of King's Landing, entwining with the salty breath of Blackwater Bay. In the pre-dawn gloom, a lone figure drifted along the quiet street of Sisters, footfalls soundless on cracked cobbles slick with night mist. His cloak seemed woven of the shadows themselves, each fold swallowing what little lantern light dared touch it. Under the hood, pale eyes shimmered, eyes that had once watched over the glassy waters of Bravos, that had measured the rhythm of life and death in every sword stroke, every pause between heartbeats. Those eyes belonged to a man the world now named Jaqen Hagar, yet the truth nestled deeper than any mortal tongue had ever spoken. Long before men knew him as a Lorati prisoner, before a girl called Arya Stark freed him at the mercy of fire and iron, he had danced in bright courts as Syrio Forel, first sword of Bravos, lion tamer of silence, secret disciple of the many-faced god. Names were shells. Only purpose endured. Purpose had drawn him back across the narrow sea. Westeros was a wound-weeping chaos, raw since the death of a king and the crowning of 5 more. Small folk bled. High folk schemed. The stranger walked openly beneath banners torn and scorched. In such soil, the seed of a new idea might root deep, nourished by fear and longing. A guild of assassins native to these 7 quarreling kingdoms, bound not by coin alone, nor by foreign creed, but by the quiet grace of water dancing and the absolute mercy of faceless death. He paused before a shuttered tavern whose signboard creaked in the breeze. A faded mermaid clutching a trident, scales flaking like dying petals. It was here that the first petitioner would come. He closed his eyes, listening, not to the sigh of waves or the groan of timber, but to the pulse beneath the city, a subterranean drum of lives colliding, conspiring, clinging. Every beat revealed a path. The tavern door unlatched with a whisper. In the dim interior, the air tasted of stale ale and spilled secrets. He seated himself at a back table, spine straight, gloved hands resting lightly atop one another, balanced, ready. Time drifted. Dawn's pearl glow seeped through cracks in shutter slats, striping the dust with pale bars. At length, soft footsteps approached. A boy no older than 10 slipped inside, cheeks hollow, eyes skittish as a street cat's. He carried a parcel wrapped in brown cloth. Wordlessly, the boy set it on the table and stepped back. Jaqen regarded him. Ragged tunic, calloused toes poking from sandals, the wiry tension of one who had outrun hunger yet never escaped its jaws. A perfect first thread in the tapestry. A gift for the kindly man, the boy murmured in low Valyrian learned from passing sailors. Jaqen unfolded the cloth. Within lay 3 objects. A broken wooden sword worn to a soft sheen at the grip, a tarnished copper coin bearing a stranger's face, and a sprig of kingsfoil still wet with morning dew. Tokens of training, payment, and promise. He nodded once. A boy has brought what is needed. Has a boy also brought his name? The child hesitated, gaze darting toward the shuttered light as if he might flee. No one, he whispered at last. Then no one is accepted. Jaqen's tone caressed the syllables, neither warm nor cold. He closed the cloth, set it aside, and rose. Come. They slipped into the waking maze of King's Landing, disappearing before any might recall them. Through alleys where washerwomen flung night soil and gold cloaks drowsed against walls, across rooftops still beating with dew, until the red keep was a crimson smudge on the horizon and the city's roar dulled to a distant groan. Beyond the farmer's gate stretched scrubland and scattered ruins. Relics of Aegon's conquest, cracked marble steps half buried in thistles, archways leading nowhere. Amid the rubble crouched the shell of an old sept, its bell tower fallen sideways like a snapped finger. Dappled sun spilled through gaping holes in the roof, painting prayer pools on the shattered tiles. This will be the first temple, Jaqen said. His voice merged with the hush of wind sliding through broken rafters. He knelt, fingertips sifting dust and bone fragments until they uncovered a stone face. The stranger, chiseled by hands long dead yet smiling anew beneath the rubble. He motioned the boy closer. Speak the words. The child's lips trembled. Vala Morgulis. Vala Dohiris. Thus began the Westerosi Guild of Shadows. News of silent deaths drifted like smoke across the realm. A corrupt tax collector in Maidenpool found lying in bed with a willow leaf resting upon each eyelid. A knight in service to House Bracken was discovered in his solar, throat kissed by steel so fine it left no blood upon the floor. A broker of flesh in Old Town, who traded children to the fighting pits of Lys, was found adrift in the Honeywine, weighted by only a single river stone-bound to his ankle with horsehair. Small folk coined names: the Whispering Blades, the Dancing Death, the Guild of Quiet Grace. In taverns they swore the killers slid through walls. Septons decried them as demons. Lords whispered of Bravosi spies, but no one could name a face. That was their creed. Faces were garments worn and shed. Syrio, Jaqen, taught them the way of water and the gift of many faces, though scarce few mastered the latter, for that art demanded a price deeper than coin, the surrender of self upon the altar of the many-faced god. He gathered pupils from every corner. Liara of the Hollow Hill, once a poacher's daughter, whose hearing was so keen she could loose an arrow guided by echo alone. Tal Ridus, late of the Citadel, a novice expelled for opening forbidden tomes. His mind mapped poisons like a septon maps verses, and his fingers weighed powders finer than sifted snow. Ser Harwin the Houndtooth, bastard of the Trident, arms etched with scars like river deltas. He learned to move his bulk with unexpected swiftness, a shadow wearing a bear's skin. Nessa Sand, born beneath Dornish stars, smile quick as a flick knife. She could mimic any accent after an hour of listening. Together they formed the first hand, 5 fingers moving at one master's bidding, yet each honing a unique edge. Jaqen watched them spar among the sept's ruined pillars, blades ringing soft and sure, dust spiraling like ghosts between them. He corrected stances with the tap of a wooden practice sword, whispered riddles that unraveled into lethal truths. When dusk settled, he led them in silent prayer before the cracked visage of the stranger, candlelight fluttering against stone cheeks. One night Liara asked what many dared not. Why here? Bravos has long hands. Why risk rooting in this broken land? Jaqen stirred the candle flame with a breath. A gardener knows the richest soil is found where blood has soaked deepest. Westeros bleeds and will bleed more. A seed planted now will grow forests. She frowned. Forests of corpses. Forests of balance. His smile held neither mirth nor cruelty, but something older, the tilt of a scale settling. Men swing blades for crowns and coins. We swing truth. All men must die, but not all deaths are equal. When the scales tilt, we right them. Over moons they ventured forth in shadow pairs, never the full hand at once, testing their craft upon vermin in human skin. They slew with subtlety, a coin slipping into a goblet, a garrote no thicker than a hair, a kiss laced with widow's blood. Each kill honed their conscience until conscience itself grew quiet, a still pond mirroring whatever mask they wore. Yet Jaqen's grand design reached farther than isolated retribution. A guild endured only when its roots tangled with powers high and low. Thus he courted whispers instead of gold. In King's Landing, Littlefinger's spies began vanishing. In Old Town, a maester confessor disappeared, leaving behind his chain but not his tongue. Each removal balanced a scale unseen, unlocking favors owed. Soon ravens sought them. Some bore sigils crisp with wax, others bore no seal at all. Most proposals were refused. Coin alone could not hire the guild. Their judgment rested on secrets gleaned through rag-picking urchins, brothel pillow talk, and the silent language of frightened eyes. If a petition revealed a rot that threatened many for the profit of one, the hand accepted. If merely a petty feud, the parchment burned unread. In Twilight's hush on the 12th moon of their founding, Ser Harwin returned from the Riverlands with a captive. Maester Luwin the Grey, scholar of poisons, exiled for selling Strangler to Casterly Rock. Jaqen greeted the prisoner within the sept's nave, where shattered statues leaned like mourners around a stone coffin. Luwin trembled beneath ropes, eyes darting over the hooded figures encircling him. "I know things," he babbled. "Names, cures, secrets. Ransom me, I'll serve." "A maester once traded death," Jaqen said gently. "Death now trades him. Before the man could plead further, Tal Ridus stepped forward, pressing 2 silvered fingertips beneath Luwin's jaw. A pulse fluttered. The maester's eyes glazed like moonlit ponds. He collapsed without sound. In that moment, Tal became steward of the guild's brews, inheriting Luwin's knowledge poured from corpse to cup. Weeks later, white ravens announced the first snows in the north. Rumor whispered of dark things stirring beyond the wall. Among the small council in King's Landing, seats emptied by war were filled by hungry men. The realm slid toward chaos like a cart on icy slope. It was time to test the guild's true reach. Jaqen dispatched Liara and Nessa in disguise as septas on pilgrimage. Their road wound through the stormlands where bandit companies, once sworn to Renly Baratheon, now sold steel to the highest bidder. One such company had taken refuge in a half-ruined holdfast, extorting small folk for grain and flesh. Under cover of pious charity, the 2 septa sisters offered to bless the camp. That night, 23 men sputtered lifeless upon their stew, throats swelling purple, eyes bleeding tears. The compound's gates opened at dawn. The small folk found their oppressors arranged in a circle, hands clasped as if in prayer. Pinned to the captain's breast was a single willow leaf. Word flew faster than ravens. A myth coalesced, a silent order wandering the realm, correcting injustices where kings could not. Small folk began leaving offerings. Bowls of milk beneath bridges, copper pennies at crossroads, prayers for silent salvation. Such homage sustained the guild's legend as much as any coin paid by nobles. Amid these victories, Jaqen seldom slept. Within the sept's crypt below the nave, he carved facets into a mask of unborn wood, a face shaped to reflect sky and sea, sorrow and silence. He dreamed of the girl Arya, her heart still hot with wolf's blood, wandering a path that spiraled toward them like twin snakes. She too would shape Westeros, but her blade yet needed tempering. One day he might guide her again, if the many-faced god willed it. Winter crept south. The guild fortified their hidden sanctum. Tal distilled flask upon flask of oil that burned without smoke. Liara mapped escape tunnels through collapsed crypts. Ser Harwin hauled salvaged stone to buttress the sagging tower. Under moonlight they trained, water-dancing steps echoed by flicker swords of shadow. Jaqen supervised with the patience of still water, correcting errors other eyes might miss. The angle of a hip pivot, the subtle lift of a shoulder betraying intent. Perfect form birthed perfect silence. Yet perfection bred envy. A spy of Varys glimpsed Nessa scaling the walls of the Red Keep and disappeared hours later. Throat nicked so neatly the blood coated only the inside of his collar. The Master of Whisperers, affronted, unleashed net after net to ensnare the shadow dancers. The guild answered not with blades but with absence. For 6 weeks King's Landing knew no assassin's leaf, no hush of lethal wind. Then a single parchment appeared on Varys's pillow, blank save for a drop of black wax shaped like a tear. The message was clear. Some secrets should remain unpursued. Varys instructed his little birds to sing elsewhere. Meanwhile, the High Septon thundered against godless killers profaning holy ground. He dispatched a company of warrior brothers to raise the ruined sept beyond the city walls. When they arrived at dawn, they found only crumbling stone and candles burnt to stubs. The guild had vanished, abandoning their birthplace like a snake shedding skin. On the cracked altar lay a single face carved from weirwood, eyes closed in serene acceptance. The brothers burned it, but the smoke drifted east, curling toward Blackwater like a blessing. Jaqen led his followers inland, choosing a new haven in the riverlands where war had carved holes in every heart. They occupied an abandoned mill hidden by willows along the tumblestone. Here the currents hummed lullabies older than dragons. Here the guild learned to glide beneath water's skin, to let river silt disguise steel, to strike from below as unseen as mythic Nymeria's wolves. In summer's last gasp, ravens brought tidings from the twins. The phrase plotted a union of swords and songs that would gut the young wolf king. Jaqen weighed this carefully. Assassinating a lord paramount risked upsetting balances beyond one house's cruelty, yet allowing treachery on such scale could drown the realm in red. He posed the dilemma to his pupils around a low fire, embers painting their masks amber. Ser Harwin argued for intervention. Tal cautioned restraint. Nessa proposed sowing discord among the Frey heirs instead. Jaqen listened, eyes half closed. At last he spoke. A single thread pulled rashly unravels the tapestry. Better to weave new patterns. He assigned them separate tasks. A poisoned whisper here, a subtle nudge of information there, ensuring the coming massacre would spare certain innocents otherwise doomed. Not salvation, merely mitigation. Balance, always. Moons turned. The guild's legend spread on traitors' tongues from the arbor to the gift. Children in Flea Bottom played a game called Quiet Mercy, tagging one another with invisible knives. Northern spearmen carried willow leaves tucked in helm bands for luck. Across the sea, the kindly men of Bravos watched with expressionless interest, for whispers reached even the house of Black and White. Some murmured that a rogue acolyte sowed new worship without the priest's sanction. Others speculated the many-faced God himself guided events. Either way, judgment would come eventually. On a night of frostbright stars, Jaqen stood upon the mill's roof, gaze tracking a comet's pale blade slicing the heavens. Behind him footsteps crunched lightly. Liara's silhouette joined his, breath pluming silver. "You look north," she said, "where all stories converge." He pointed skyward. "That fire in the dark, it reminds a man of something lost. Hope, choice." His eyes reflected comet flame. "Many paths lie before us, vengeance for some, redemption for others. Which will we walk?" Liara's fingers brushed the hilt of her dagger. "The one you show us." Jaqen smiled a weapon-thin smile. "Then watch carefully, for even a guide may stumble." Below, the tumblestone murmured secrets older than crowns. Southward, kings feuded. Northward, ancient ice cracked. Amid that vast weave a guild of silent dancers poised to alter destinies with the flick of unseen blades. And somewhere beyond horizon and rumor, a wolf-blooded girl with mismatched eyes quickened her stride toward a fate entwined with theirs, bearing memories of a kindly man and a dance of water. Winter deepened. Snow dusted the mill's wheel, each flake a silent toll. Jaqen assembled the first hand in the great room, firelight rolling across masks hung upon rafters. Faces of beggars, septons, sailors, maids, tools awaiting wielders. He addressed his pupils. "The realm quakes. Soon we must choose. Remain ghosts trimming rot, or step into legend shaping the trunk of this tree. A guild may stand apart only until the world demands its weight." He produced a rolled map inked with colored threads marking trade routes, Ravager bands, White Harbor convoys. Winter will starve tens of thousands.
Lords hort greng, merchansige pritzes, smolfolk dinameles.
We will change that.
Ser wins bro furuba.
Assassins cannot feed armies, but fear feeds obedience. Jaqen tapped the map. 3 grain warehouses in Lannisport, 1 at Bitterbridge, 2 in Gulltown. The owners gouge prices. We send messages. 1 life at each holdfast spilled upon the ledgers, signed with willow leaves. Prices fall or more blood answers. Tal tilted his head. Not balance pressure. Balance adjusted. Jaqen met each gaze. "Are we agreed?" One by one masks nodded. Mission after mission unfurled. Warehouses aflame with owners found unmarked beside account books rewritten in crimson. Grain carts redirected to destitute hamlets under moonlit watch. Corrupt bailiffs awoke with tongues nailed to counting tables. The realm's rich cursed ghosts. The hungry whispered prayers to faceless saviors. Yet among those lords robbed of profit was Ser Damon Chelsted, cousin to the Hand in King's Landing. Pride wounded, he hired gold cloaks to hunt the Phantom Guild. Their captain, an ambitious brute named Rusk, rounded up beggars, dock thieves, any who could not pay bribes. Torture spilled innocent blood, but yielded no shadow dancer. Rusk grew desperate, posted bounties on willow leaves. Street urchins began planting counterfeit tokens upon rivals to collect coin. Chaos birthed false accusations, and the guild felt the ripple of unintended harm. Jaqen summoned his pupils. "We correct what our shadow wrought." He selected Nessa and Tal to infiltrate the gold cloaks. Ser Harwin to capture Rusk alive, Liara to protect those falsely accused. For missions spinning from one frayed thread. Night blanketed King's Landing. Nessa, masked as a perfumed courtesan, lured Rusk's lieutenant into a wine cellar. Tal, garbed as his own torture victim, slipped poison into interrogation tents. Ser Harwin descended upon the captain's quarters like a silent avalanche, binding Rusk in chains meant for others. They presented the brute at dawn to the Flea Bottom Market, feet bound, mouth gagged. When city folk gathered, Liara stepped forth wearing no mask, only a willow circlet in her hair. She proclaimed the captain's crimes, then opened his throat with a single stroke so clean that the blood arced away from the watching children. The message rang clear: those who exploited fear would themselves be unmade by it. Gold cloaks returned to standard bribe-taking and petty theft, leaving willow leaves alone. Beyond these struggles, the tides of great war shifted. A boy king's crown cracked. Dragons flew once more. Cold rose in the far north. The guild listened but intervened sparingly. They were not armies. They were the quiet balance. Yet destiny approached like winter wind howling through broken shutters. One brittle dawn, a raven beat at the mill's window, bearing a plain scroll. Jaqen unrolled it and read silently. When his pupils assembled, he spoke 2 words only: faceless summons. The guild knew of the Bravosi Order's methods. A whisper, a coin, a dagger never seen. Summons could be invitation or judgment. Either way, refusal was not a path. Jaqen prepared to depart alone, but Liara, Tal, Ser Harwin, and Nessa stood before him, forming a silent wall of resolve. "We are the hand," Liara said. "Where one finger points, all follow." Jaqen considered the stubborn grace of his creations. He saw in them not pupils but reflections, each a mirror of some shard within his former selves. He agile Forel, the merciful faceless, the wandering prisoner. He bowed once, accepting their fidelity. They set sail aboard a weather-beaten cog under false banners, leaving the mill to caretakers and ferrymen sworn to secrecy. The tumblestone's current bore them to the sea, where gray waves welcomed them like old friends. As the coast dwindled, Jaqen stood at the prow, wind combing his hair free of hooded shadow. He wondered which mask he would wear in Bravos: supplicant, renegade, redeemer. Behind him the first hand sharpened blades, meditated, or simply watched gulls dive. Westeros receded, but its echo clung to them. The guild was not a place but a vow, etched deeper than skin. Wherever they walked, balance would follow, and with it the sigh of quiet mercy. The ship's bell told the hour. Sea spray kissed Jaqen's cheeks like memories made salt. He closed his eyes, breathed the many-faced god's breath, and whispered, "All men must serve." Beneath a sky blooming with distant storm clouds, the assassins sailed east, toward judgment, toward destiny, and perhaps toward the moment the wolf-blooded girl would step from shadow to claim her own many-faced path, guided by the dancing master who had never truly left her side. The river of future bore them on, inexorable, silent. Sure, the cog named Sable Whisper cleaved the wine-dark sea with languid strokes. Its single square sail bleached bone-pale beneath a sky mottled by bruised storm clouds. Salt mists purled upon tar-soaked planks, glazing every rope in glimmering dew. Days passed in a hushed rhythm. Creak, sigh, crash would wind, wave, each note answering the last as faithfully as a prayer bead sliding over thumb. Jaqen Hagar stood often at the prow, cloak snapping like a raven's wing, eyes fixed upon the horizon where Bravos would soon rise, if the many-faced god willed it. From that stillness he observed his pupils and saw how the voyage chiseled them. Sea air peeled callous from soul as surely as salt water softens rawhide. Tal Ridus, ever bent above his vials, had begun cataloging scents on the wind. Kelp, tar, distant lavender from Tyroshi perfume casks carried south. Liara traced gull calls to gauge coastline geometry invisible to mortal eyes. Ser Harwin, broad as a bear in armor, practiced silent footwork along narrow gunnels until even rats failed to hear him pass. Nessa Sand dangled bare feet from the quarterdeck, repeating Valyrian tongue twisters until each syllable vanished into the next like ripples. Upon ripples. On the sixth sunrise, swell built into slow-rolling walls of slate. The captain, a lantern-jawed Braavosi named Dravos Moore, ordered reefed canvas. Thunder soon boomed overhead, low as the growl of a waking giant. Rain drummed the deck in spear points. Amid the deluge, the first hand trained. Jaqen led them in water dance forms more rigorous than any they had known ashore. Each cut matched to a lightning flash, so their steel shimmered and vanished as though forged from storm itself. Hours later, when tempests sagged into drizzle and gulls circled once more, the assassins sank, exhausted, to the wet planks. Jaqen allowed them silence long enough to feel heartbeats slow, then spoke without turning. Storms teach a truth lesser waters hide. Strength is found not in resisting the wave, but in shaping to its will. Liara, cheeks rain-slick, breathed. We yielded, yes, and in yielding we cut through. His gaze remained on the receding clouds where a rag of golden light tore the gray. Remember this when judgment falls. One may bend to avoid a sword yet return sharper. That eve Dravos invited the travelers to his cramped stern cabin, where whale oil lamps swung overhead and maps slid across a bolted table. The captain's manner toward Jaqen was one of wary respect seasoned with fear. He recognized something in the pale-eyed man that ships across leagues of sea whispered about. Braavos lies 2 days east if tides favor us, Dravos said, tapping a finger upon inked parchment. Yet word flies faster than gulls. House of Black and White no doubt anticipates your arrival. A faint smile played across Jaqen's lips. Anticipation and welcome are not the same. Dravos swallowed. Should I dock by the Purple Harbor? Or the Ragmans, if you prefer shadows? Dock where coin is cheapest and tongues lazier, Jaqen replied. Purple Harbor will suffice. Its bustle cloaks quiet steps. The captain inclined his head, relieved. Very well. Storms permitting, we make anchor by second dawn. After Dravos dismissed them, Tal lingered, fingers tracing a sea monster illustration etched on a map corner. Captain fears what awaits, he murmured. We all fear what awaits, Jaqen answered. Fear sharpens. He turned to leave but paused. Prepare a draft to hush pain, should wounds follow words. Tal dipped his head. The low lamplight flashed across his spectacles, reflecting twin pinpricks of gold. Night wove black velvet over the sable whisper. Nessa kept first watch beside the port rail, ears tuned to water's lullaby. Below, in the single-berth cabins granted by the captain, her comrades slept or strove to. She could almost hear Liara's restless imagination scraping against the timbers. Every creak a question, every gust a memory of arrows loosed under Syrio's moonlit tutelage. Steps soft as fog betrayed Jaqen's presence. He halted by her side, sharing the shivering lantern glow. Neither spoke at first. Somewhere abaft, the wheel groaned gently while stars winked clear above the retreating cloud rag. Eyes open, thoughts still, Jaqen said finally, voice as low as oiled hinges. Good. Nessa let the hush soak a moment longer before breaking it. Bravos, she tasted the word. City of 1,000 faces. We go to face all at once. A girl jests. She shrugged, smile crooked. Halfjest. The kindly man will ask whether I squandered a gift in founding our guild. He will ask whether these children of Westeros serve the many-faced god or only their own masks. Be certain he will twist truth until we bleed our intent. Nessa's dark eyes searched the horizon. Nothing but wavering phosphor. If you are judged wanting, what becomes of us? Judgment cuts flesh, but truth mends purpose. Jaqen glanced to her. Should this man fall, lead the hand back to Westeros. The tree yet needs pruning. She exhaled through her nose, a soft hiss swallowed by wind. I was a thief before a blade found my palm. I never led aught but myself. Then time soon to lead more. He patted her shoulder once, so brief it might have been imagined, and vanished down the stairwell. Nessa remained, heart thudding new, unfamiliar patterns. Morning draped the sea in gauze of winter pale. Veils of mist rose from the water's breath. Ship's bells tolled faint, half-hidden. Ahead, the Titan of Bravos materialized by degrees. First a shimmering outline, then adamant legs straddling the harbor mouth, finally a bronze helm fiery in dawn flux. Beneath that colossal sentinel myriad ships threaded into the lagoon, their wakes lace patterns upon jade. As the sable whisper approached, trumpet blasts boomed from the Titan's chest. Too long, too short, challenge and welcome. Dravos answered with the ship's bell. Salt white gulls swooped among rusty ankles of the statue, shrieking delight. Liara, perched on the bowsprit, breathed. He looks ready to stride away if the world offends him. Ser Harwin, gripping rigging near the mainmast, chuckled. World offends him every hour, still he stands. Endurance is power, Jaqen said from the prow rail. The Titan's looming shadow fell over his face, obscuring pale eyes. Remember that. Past the gate, Bravos unfurled in all its waterborne splendor. Domed rooftops of pearl and marble, wooden houses painted saffron and indigo, canals lined with lampposts shaped like leaping fish. Gondoliers guided slender boats laden with silks or citrus. Armored barges bore faceless oarsmen transporting dignitaries masked in gold. Overhead arched slender bridges, each carved with a different fable. Dravos's crew secured moorings at Purple Harbor, where the salt tang mingled with scents of olives, pitch, and lamprey broths simmering at quayside stalls. Upon the gangplank stood a single envoy, hooded, gloved, robes undyed. No sigil adorned him, yet everyone on deck felt recognition coil in gut. The envoy raised a hand. The motion parted crowds instinctively. He spoke, voice androgynous, hardly more than breath. Syrio Forel. No crewman understood. Only Jaqen and the first hand heard the weight behind those two syllables. Jaqen inclined his head. A man travels under many sails. The house waits. The envoy's hood dipped, then turned away. Jaqen motioned his disciples ashore. Dravos crossed arms over chest, swallowing a last unease as they disembarked. Nessa caught the captain's gaze and flashed a quick Dorn-style salute. He answered with thin-lipped smile. Perhaps relief, perhaps dread. Bravos enveloped the travelers in kaleidoscopic sound. Lute chords drifting from balcony gardens, hawkers barking over pomegranate crates, gull laughter echoing off stone quays. Yet under that bustle pulsed an undercurrent of hush, like a drumbeat a listener only notices after long exposure. Jaqen alone felt it from first step, the city itself aware, watching through 1,000 keyholes. The envoy guided them along the Canal of Heroes. Statues rose on plinths from mirrored water. Ancient triarchs, mermaids, cell sails, even Tyria of the basilisks, whose petrified gaze tracked them with unblinking scorn. Gondolas gave way as if parted by unseen tide. Their route ended at last beside a humble isle of weeping willows. Here stood the house of black and white, walls half-charred, half-whitewashed, doors of mottled ebony and weirwood carved into opposing visages, one joyful, one dour. The envoy halted at the threshold. Enter as you were birthed, bearing only yourselves. Liara unbuckled quiver, Tal unslung satchel. Nessa folded cloak to deck. Ser Harwin removed the bare-toothed talisman carved by his bastard mother. They laid steel, poison, keepsakes in neat row upon black stone. Jaqen removed nothing. He had long since given away everything save purpose. Inside the house twilight reigned. Incense of strange roots curled through vaulted hall. Distant water lapped stone colonnades. Unseen acolytes whispered prayers equal parts lullaby and dirge. Braziers cast soft amber upon a floor of mosaic faces, each tile another mortal expression. Sorrow, awe, bliss, terror. Among them stood the kindly man. He wore an unremarkable brown robe and the mien of a mild grandfather. Eyes milk blue, hair wisps of snow, skin slack. Yet his gaze pierced the soul's marrow deeper than any blade. Syrio Forel returns, he rasped, smile faint. Or does he come as Jaqen Hagar? Or perhaps neither, perhaps both. Jaqen bowed. A man comes as he must. As we all. The kindly man's eyes brushed across the first hand. Children from across the sea. They walk paths never blessed by the many-faced god, yet tread his footfalls in shadow. Ser Harwin met the old priest's gaze, shoulders squared. Not defiant, but honest. Liara's fingers twitched near non-existent bowstring. Tal lowered eyes to hide calculation. Nessa simply breathed, letting maskless face reveal nothing. The kindly man gestured to a ring of basalt benches. Sit, drink. Acolytes in mottled gray appeared, presenting cups of pale blue water that smelled faintly of almond and autumn leaves fallen on grave dirt. Jaqen remained standing. We drink if we share truth. Truth is water. One may drink or drown. The kindly man's smile melted away, leaving slate countenance. You birthed a guild of western shadows, claiming to serve balance. Is balance not ours to meet? Jaqen considered the gloom, where candlelight flickered like dying moths. He spoke in measured tone. When Bravos was young, men of the Valyrian freehold forged chains upon slaves. Founders of this house broke those chains in secret so that slaves might break them in public. Balance served freedom. History, yes, acknowledged the priest, but you twist thread forward. Now you free small folk by killing lords, free coin by killing greed. To what end? Mercy. A brittle silence spread. The kindly man sighed. Mercy, yes, but mercy without sacrifice distorts. These children, he motioned to the first hand, have they surrendered selves? Tal raised eyes. We serve death. Do you serve it? The priest stepped closer, bare feet whispering on mosaic. Or merely wield it? His gaze slid to Ser Harwin. Your scars speak of battle for coin. Then to Nessa. Your tongue tastes every accent yet still savors your own. To serve the many-faced god one must dissolve into water. Lose taste, color, scent. Liara's grip whitened on bench edge. We gave names. Names are skin, the priest murmured, leaning nearer until his breath kissed her forehead. But bone remains beneath. Have you offered bone? Jaqen interceded. The many-faced god accepts paths many. A village kneels to the stranger in times of plague. A Bravosi sailor offers coin before voyage. A Dornish cut purse whispers to Mother Royne. All faces, all roads. True, the kindly man straightened. Yet priests guard temple doors for reason. You have opened a new door without key, without right. He looked to Jaqen, eyes suddenly vast as moonlit seas. The house must deem whether that door stands or shuts. Therefore, you and yours shall be tested.
Ser Harwin cracked knuckles.
What test? 3 tasks. The priest held up fingers slender as candle wicks. One for each question set before us. Intent, sacrifice, endurance. He drew nearer to Liara, nerves thrumming from her like harp strings. You shall bear the first. Liara swallowed. Intent. Yes, bring swift death to one the temple names, a life whose removal heals a greater wound. But do so without wearing any mask save your own. Nessa rose. She will be recognized. That is the measure. Then he faced Tal. Second task, sacrifice. Brew a poison to spare the suffering of 10 dying children afflicted by pale plague in the Ragman's harbor. They linger in agony. Mercy calls. Tal bowed head. I will distill kindness. Finally, the priest turned to Ser Harwin. Endurance. You shall guard the black doors through one full turn of moon, neither eating flesh nor speaking aloud, no weapon in hand. Many will come bearing petitions. You must judge which to admit, which to turn away, bones your only defense. Harwin's jaw flexed. I shall stand. The kindly man nodded, then addressed Jaqen. As for you, rogue priest, you will watch and not intervene. Only when tasks conclude will we rule on Dor's fate. Jaqen inclined head, acceptance etched on each deliberate breath. So shall it be. First dawn after decree broke amber and rose over Bravos. Liara departed alone, armed only with curved short blade and quiver of ash shaft arrows. tools so personalized they betrayed identity to any who knew her. She crossed bridges slick with morning dew, heart thudding to pulse of parish bells. Her target, Illyrio Vistaso, spice trader turned slaver, whose secret auctions trafficked children stolen from alley orphanages. The temple's informants had discovered a sale scheduled this very evening along the moon pool. Liara trailed rumors through silk markets and eel pie alleys. She followed a pickpocket child employed by Vistaso, only 10 name days, wrist branded with spice jar sigil. The girl led her, unwitting, to a warehouse heavy with saffron scent. Guards lounged at the broad doors, mercenaries in mismatched cuirasses, smiles wicked. Liara studied rotation, counted footfalls, listened to gull cry reflections off warehouse walls to judge interior distances. At dusk, as gulls roost and lanterns flared, she slid along the canal's lip under veil of fish oil smoke. Arrow notched, she exhaled slow. Intent, she reminded herself, remove one to heal many. Wind shifted. A line of prayer boats drifted past, bells tinkling, drawing guards' eyes for half-breath. She loosed. The arrow hissed through spice-scent air, punched Vistaso's throat where he stood upon balcony tallying children's weights. No time for cry. The slaver toppled into canal, silk robe ballooning. Guards shouted, but confusion reigned. Liara sprang across crates, arrows whispering one after another, not to kill but to mislead, embedding into wooden posts, drawing mercs away. Then she vanished over a side bridge. Behind, orphans scrambled free, chains still dangling, slapping cobble. Some would survive, some would not, but wound was cauterized. She did not flee to temple. Instead, she walked streets unmasked, accepting every stare. Early next morn, she knelt before the kindly man. He regarded her blood-spattered tunic, her unhidden face. Intent proven. No more was said. Tal Ridus descended into the ragman's harbor hospice, a stinking warren where children rattled with fever while physicians bled them in futility. Yellow lamplight shook on stone. He unpacked brass alembic, charred pewter mortar, violet-tinted vials. From pockets he drew slender parchment scrolls inscribed with calculations of weight and ratio, mercy measured to grain. For 3 days he brewed. Poppy tears, tears of liss, milk of the poppy again, woven with essence of moonsteel fungus, each portion heated, cooled, decanted to glass. Steam rose blue as dusk. Vapors carried soft almond note, the smell of quick oblivion. When mixture settled into clear liquid, he tested single drop on dying rat. It sighed once and stilled, eyes glassing over. Tal summoned the elder healer, lips set firm. 10 children, he said. No more. Dose equal per weight. One by one he delivered drafts. Some children stared with eyes already too old. Some whimpered for mothers long sold to canals. Tal murmured lullabies learned in Old Town archives, ancient hymns of Roiner River mothers. After final cup, he sat among cots until lungs fell silent. In that hush, he wept dry tears for the first time since exile. Then he cleaned vessels, left them in hospice corridor, and walked into sunlight-stained gold with death's final kindness. The kindly man greeted him by temple pond. Sacrifice accepted. Tal bowed, leaving new hollow inside where grief might echo for years. Ser Harwin took station at the black doors on longest night of year. Stars wheeled above, frosty breath painting darkness. He wore only simple robe. Within sleeves his hands curled to fists when wind bit. Petitioners arrived like tides. Some begged release from pain. An old sailor whose lungs rattled. A widow cursed by creditors. Harwin opened doors for those whose despair rang pure. Others sought vengeance. A rich banker wanting rival felled. A spurned lover craving poison. Harwin barred them, body a wall of silent denial. One night, a bravo wearing dual scars attempted to force passage. Harwin stood weaponless yet unyielding. The bravo lunged. Harwin sidestepped, guiding attacker's momentum into doorframe. The skull cracked. Man crumpled. Harwin neither gloated nor lamented, simply returned to stance, breath white banners in moonlight. Days blurred. Hunger gnawed. He sipped snowmelt, chewed willow bark to curb pangs. Words attempted escape from throat, an instinctual greeting, a warning, but he swallowed each, tasting iron. By moon's full return his beard iced, eyes sunken, yet spine straight. The kindly man found him thus, haloed in dawn frost. Endurance proven. Harwin nodded, voice a ragged whisper after long silence. Durchstand. The 3 trials concluded beneath pale winter sun streaming through house's oculus. The kindly man assembled priests and acolytes around central pool, whose black surface mirrored all faces into one. Jaqen and the first hand knelt opposite. Intent, sacrifice, endurance, the old priest intoned. All met, yet question remains. Does this Western guild serve the many-faced god or wields his name for mortal design? He raised hand. Acolyte offered shallow bowl of dark water. Look! Each assassin gazed. Within swirl reflected slavers' gurgling fear, children's last sighs, bravos' shattered arrogance. Then the water stilled, showing their own faces before fading to faceless void. The kindly man's voice became whined through catacombs. You bear mercy's burden, yet your guild does not stand outside the house. It is branch sprung from same root. We shall not sever what lives. Instead we graft. He stepped to Jaqen, placed bowl in his hands. Return west. Continue pruning with caution. Once each season an envoy shall bring accounts. Fail in balance, and the root will recall its branch. Jaqen bowed deep, heart a silent drum. A man serves. Liara, Tal, Harwin. Nessa touched fingers to brow, lips, heart. Oath renewed not by word but gesture. The kindly man concluded, the door you opened remains, wide enough for wind, narrow enough to cut any who pass unworthy. 2 weeks later the Sable Whisper set sail again, hull newly caulked, holds laden with grain purchased by anonymous benefactor, destined for hungry villages across the Bight. Dravos welcomed the quiet passengers with wary grin. Legend travels quick in bravos. Aboard, Nessa found Jaqen on quarterdeck at sunset, gazing across violet horizon. You bent, she observed, recalling storm lesson. He inclined head, and returned sharper. She leaned against rail. What waits in Westeros now? Winter's howl, dragon's fire, wolf's fate. His smile held a daughter's name unspoken, and a guild's dance upon edge of it all. Below, Liara tuned bowstring beside barrels of grain. Tal repacked vials nestled among healing salves. Harwin fixed new leather grips on practiced swords. They felt the ship turn west, prow slicing path of ever-changing foam. Night came, painting sea star-flung black. Jaqen closed eyes, listening to water against hull, the same lullaby that sang within every vein of the world. In that rhythm he heard balance. Life, death, mercy, cost. A whisper, a blade, a door standing half ajar. He felt destiny stirring like distant drumbeats, neither fearful nor jubilant but inevitable. Somewhere far ahead, a wolf-blooded girl practiced with a thin sword, counting every heartbeat. Somewhere further north, frost cracked ancient ice. Somewhere south, crows gathered over abandoned fields. Between all, the guild would dance unseen, trimming tangled threads so the tapestry, battered, bright, cruel, wondrous, might endure. He opened eyes to starlight, breathed deep salt, and murmured, Valadohiris. The sea answered with endless hush, a promise, a warning, a cradle for the next tale yet unborn. A week after the Sable Whisper turned westward, the first hints of the narrow sea's changing temper revealed themselves in cross-currents of icy bite. Dawn light smoldered crimson against thinned cloud, casting the tumbling water in flickers of blood and bronze. A single-masted galley bearing the trident of House Nerbosi coasted past at shouting distance. Sailors lined its rail, eyes narrowed at the drab Bravosi cog that flew no banner of homeland, only the plain, salt-bleached sail of commerce. Jaqen studied them in silence, letting the world decide its own stories about his vessel, its cargo, its watchful passengers. Stories were shields when wielded properly. Below decks, the hold smelled of burlap grain and tar-sealed barrels. Liara crouched atop a half-empty crate, embroidery needle in hand, sewing a row of willow leaves onto an unassuming woolen shawl. The task steadied her nerves, each stitch a heartbeat marking time. 30 before breakfast, 30 before midday watch, 30 before she cleaned her blade beside the galley stove where Tal simmered tinctures for seasick deckhands. She felt the ship beneath her like a living heart, a drum guiding a dance whose steps she did not yet know. Ser Harwin passed the open hatch, ducking under beams that protested each swell. His beard had grown wild in the fortnight since Bravos, a frost-black bramble set against weather-cracked cheeks, but in his eyes burned a calm fierceness, the stillness soldiers find only after they have watched worlds crumble and stand ready for another. He thumped Liara's crate as greeting before climbing topside, where Nessa already balanced on the larboard bulwark, testing dagger throws against barrels bobbing in the wake. Each flip of steel found a sweet spot, burying an inch of blade into rain-swollen wood before she retrieved it, murmuring Dornish chants for precision. Tal emerged last, carrying a stoneware pitcher of clear liquid. He set it on the amidships table where Jaqen waited, pale eyes reflecting ocean horizon and something farther. Tal poured 2 cups and offered one. Jaqen drank, lips barely parting, tasting juniper, poppy seeds, a trace of bronze, an infusion brewed to thin the blood against cold spray. They spoke without words about dosage, about how long each flask would keep potency amid salty air, about what day's ration to administer when they neared shore and might face steel. Landfall by next moonrise, Dravos called from the helm. His voice stretched taut by the memory of the enormous titan under whose gaze he had watched these quiet travelers depart. If winds stay true, we fetch the sisters, then hug the Vale coast. Redfort men patrol those waters, but with proper tribute and a smile we'll pass. Jaqen offered neither tribute nor smile, only a small nod that said the decision would be respected if it served purpose. He walked aft, cloak snapping in sea-torn gusts, until bow and stern noise alike were lost to him, and he stood at the edge of private horizon, staring at the shimmer of sailing gulls. There, in the hush between swell and sky, the smell of pine drifted across memory. Pine and snow and burnt fur, the sense of a place where wolves roamed and a girl practiced with a wooden sword under a castle's stone preface. He felt her presence like a candle glimpsed across a hall, faint yet unextinguished. Wolf blood quickens, he murmured. No one heard. Night descended, brittle with stars. The sable whisper plowed onward beneath constellations older than kingdoms. Crewmen kept a wary eye on black water where moonlight traced knife edges. Rumors said corsairs out of Mir hunted here, guided by tides and captured charts. Jaqen let the crew knot their anxieties, for fear made one sharp, but he set the first hand to extra watch. 2 aloft in the rigging, 1 pacing the deck's length, 1 poised near the grain hatch with bow half-strung. Tal dozed upright against a mast, hood shadowing eyes yet mind processing vials like dreams, which mixture could clog breathing with sugar crystals if thrown in steam, which could mimic lung fever, which could numb flesh until blade felt like a kiss. He drifted between thought and unthought until Nessa's whistle pried open his lids. She pointed toward starboard. There, a dark silhouette hung just off the moon path, sails black or perhaps simply unlit. Water parted strangest behind its hull, white only on the downstroke like a swimmer's kicking feet. Tal's pulse ticked double. He slipped to Jaqen's side without noise. "Shadow ship," he murmured. Jaqen saw it too. He raised hand. Liara knocked arrow. Harwin loosened rope on massive belaying pin. Nessa crept to the tiller's deputy wheel, keeping Dravos in peripheral view. The captain had noticed but not signaled alarm, for to show fear invites chase. He adjusted, heading 4 points leeward, knights the sails into speed. Minutes passed. The black ship matched course. Metal scraped. Harwin unsheathed his practice blade. Not a long sword, but a narrow water-dance saber he had forged under Jaqen's tuition. The bare-bodied man could split skulls with fists, yet he had learned subtlety. The sword's thin edge shimmered without making a sound. The pursuer began to overtake, displaying now on its mainsail a device of crossed sabers beneath a crown of 8 spikes. Nessa hissed, "The Salt Crown Company. Tyroshi sell sails. Take slaves, trade grain black market." Rumor says their captains sniff shade of the evening like fine wine. Jaqen's whisper threaded through deck creaks. They will board. We welcome them kindly. Dravos cast incredulous glance but obeyed. He slowed just a touch to shorten inevitable. Grapnel lines whirred across gap, clanged on railing. A dozen figures vaulted, cloaks swirling indigo and red, faces half hidden behind dyed linen scarves. Their leader, lean as dried shark, strutted across planks, ring-pummeled cutlass resting on shoulder. Evening, fine sailors. His Valyrian bore Tyroshi lilt thick as syrup. Customs fee for safe passage. Grain fetches fine price these days. Harwin stepped forward, sword still down. What fee? Half cargo. Sharklean grinned, gold tooth glinting, and a taste of any spirits sealed below. Dravos paled. That demand threatened ruin. Jaqen placed calm hand on captain's arm. I will speak price. Sharklean turned, seeing pale-eyed stranger for first time. The Selsail's gaze lingered on no-mark cloak, on unarmed stance. What offers the ghost? 3 deaths, Jaqen said softly. Yours among them. In exchange you keep your ship, your crew sail north without further injury. The deck shivered with the notion of such audacity. Selsail's barked laughter, some edged with nerves. Sharklean's grin faltered then widened malicious. 3 deaths for half hold? Sweet trade, but I choose which 3. Start with you. He swung cutlass down. Water dance steel met it in blur. Harwin's slim blade parried, twisting inside guard to nick wrist. Sharklean yelped, dropping sword. In one motion Harwin reversed grip, slicing hamstring. The Selsail collapsed. Before others reacted, Liara loosed arrow into the throat of nearest attacker. Shaft sprouted like reed, choking gurgle. Nessa spun between 2, daggers quicksilver kisses at armpit gaps. Tal hurled vial. Glass burst in violet mist over 3 men, who gasped, clutched chests, collapsed twitching. Seconds only. Remaining Selsails froze, lengths of chain and axes half-raised. Gold-toothed captain writhed, clutching ruined leg. Jaqen knelt beside him, eyes gentle. Mercy, he whispered, and slid thin stiletto under jaw. The body stilled. He rose, coat unspeckled. 2 deaths remain. The Selsails needed none. They retreated stumbling across grapnel lines, hauling corpses. Their ship cut canvas, oars churning. Dravos exhaled so long his ribs creaked. Throw him to sea, Jaqen commanded of captain's corpse. Liara obeyed, murmuring prayer. The sable whisper resumed quiet groove through night. By dawn a faint blue seam broke eastern sky. Coast of the Vale, tree-lined cliffs rearing like fortress jaws. White gulls flocked in rising thermals. Castle beacons at Red Fort winked far to north, testifying to Lisa Aaron's vigilance despite realm's chaos. Dravos steered wide of patrol cutters, his sailors flying signal flags meaning grain relief for starving villages. That claim was true enough. Only destination differed. Jaqen assembled the first hand in forward hold among sacks heavy with maize and oats. He traced map on planks using bit of chalk. Gulltown here, White Harbor there, rivers crossing like fretboard. We will deliver grain to deep den hamlets first. Winter gnaws their hardest. Then to fields near 7 streams where plague scoured. Local lords will obstruct. We answer obstructors with demonstrations, not war. Harwin's brow furrowed. Demonstrations.
Shadow vispers visible, nessa ansvered, greening.
A leaf on a pillow, or a throat open on ledger, Liara added. Jaqen dipped chalk into pouch. But we must also till our route. Expand guild, recruit watchers. Each of you choose 1 apprentice among the saved. Teach skill enough for word carrying and ear listening, not yet for killing. No masks until they're ready. He met each gaze. We shape balance beyond our blades. Tal asked, and you? I go to the north, Jaqen said. Aaron Hold seemed to hush. Wolves stir. A girl travels roads stained with frost. She will need guide, though she knows it not. The many-faced god places stones. We step where they fall. Silence held respect and curiosity both. Liara nodded. "We will manage leaves and grain until you return. Or until door recalls branch," Tal murmured. "Not fear, acceptance." Jaqen inclined head. They anchored near a shingled pier outside Maiden's Claim, a fishing hamlet whose thatched roofs sagged under early snow weight. Villagers huddled near shallows, hauling nets bereft of catch. Water's too cold this season. Children's cheeks were wind-chapped, bellies flat. Dravos's crew offloaded grain while Nessa negotiated with the Reeve, offering 1/3 free, 1/3 at fair coin, and 1/3 in promise of a secret tithe. A single willow leaf to be placed on the village sep's doorstep at new moon, confirming they would harbor the guild's couriers when called. The Reeve agreed, tears freezing on beard. That night by lantern, Tal taught the Reeve's book-learned daughter how to grind dried feverfew and burtwort into paste that countered cough. He saw in her steady eyes a glimmer of the calling mercy through knowledge. She became first apprentice, taking vow of listening, not speaking. He gifted her a small bronze mortar. She kissed its rim like holy relic. Liara found her prospect among fishermen. Young man named Corlin who could cite gull patterns and predict storms better than salt-scarred elders. His awareness of wind would serve the guild in messages. She gave him a slender horn whistle carved like leaf veins, a summons signal. Harwin chose none yet. He watched, weighing. Journey continued. North along stony beaches where seals barked, then west into the riverlands where war's ghosts still stalked burnt orchards. Every new dock repeated ritual. Grain for leaf, leaf for haven. The guild's unseen network spread like ivy, rooting in cracks of suffering. Meanwhile, rumors touched their ears. Bolton banners gathered at Dreadfort, Karstark men seeking vengeance, Ironborn raiding Stony Shore again, and across all, whispers of white shadows far beyond the wall. Wildling refugees fleeing unmapped horrors. Jaqen listened, filed each for later. Sable whisper reached salt pans, a port once sacked by raiders so savagely its cobblestone lanes still reeked of char. They tied at charred posts. Gulls nested in burnt rafters. Among blackened ruins, small folk dug graves though months had passed, ground too frozen earlier. The guild's grain felt like sunlight. There Harwin found his apprentice, a one-armed smith whose family slain in raid, yet he worked bellows single-handedly forging horseshoes from shipwreck iron. His resilience impressed Harwin. He recruited him as quartermaster for supply caches hidden across riverlands. The man, Alder by name, accepted with nod of grim purpose. For distributions later dawn over Maidenpool revealed pink-gray sky of delicate silk. Sable Whisper now rode higher in water, hold lighter. Dravos planned to drop them with final supplies at Sisterton, then sail back east for new contract. Jaqen permitted. The captain had risked enough. Sisterton emerged through gale like fortress built of driftwood and rope. Seahorse banners snapped. Fortified wooden palisade ringed muddy village square. Lord Godric Burrell's men eyed foreigners suspiciously but valued coin more than suspicion. They provided overland passage north to White Harbor aboard lumber wagons. Here the guild parted. Nessa and Tal to Gulltown for disease watch. Liara and Harwin to Seven Streams to mentor new leaves. Jaqen alone to White Harbor, route unmarked save by memory. Before splitting they convened beneath a salt-stained overhang where sea wind moaned through gaps. Jaqen traced final circle in wet sand. Follow tasks, write me not. I will find you when path requires. He pressed hand to chest, old Bravosi sign of farewell. They echoed. Nessa offered him small packet. 3 foxfire mushrooms dried. Glow for darkest night. Tal added vial of quick-clot powder. Liara slipped arrow fletched in gray-white direwolf hair. Gift from a now-dead northern clan. Harwin clasped shoulders, transferring strength. Jaqen turned north. Rode few travelers walked the season wound along towering cliffs where pines bent low under laden frost. His boots left shallow prints on crusted snow. The wind erased them quickly, ghost walking. At night he sheltered in abandoned crofters' shacks or beneath rocky ledges. He ate dried grain porridge laced with pennyroyal. Water drawn from stream discovered by ear not eye. He spoke seldom, but when he did, it was to the faces he bore inside. Syrio Forel instructing, Jaqen Hagar consoling, nameless apprentice listening. On sixth night wolves howl shivered valley. Jaqen, crouched by meager fire, recognized cadence. Not mere hunger cry but scouting call and answer, the pack mapping territory. He whispered, Vala Morgulis, and fed flame chip of willow bark. Smoke curled skyward like question mark. Wolves quieted. He slept. Near dawn dream found him. Castle of snow, banners undone. A girl pivoting on heel, water dance steps perfect. She parried invisible blow, riposted, pivoted again. Jaqen reached to correct her elbow. She turned, face of Arya yet older, eyes of deadly calm. I know the steps, Dreamher said, but not the song. Behind her rose hall of many doors, each painted a face. She opened none. Jaqen woke chilled. He resumed journey. Snow thickened, draping world in hush. In that hush new rumor traveled southbound merchants. King in the north proclaimed at White Harbor Council, House Stark reborn around young lord returned from death lines. Some said warg, some said ghost. Jaqen stored tale. Truth might differ but direction clear. For days later he climbed Final Ridge overlooking White Harbor. City of crystalline spires and wharf houses dotted with whale oil lamps. Fishing sloops knifed harbor, their masts creaking like frost-splintered trees. Castle Manderley's round towers rose candy-white against slate sea. Between sprawl of hovel and spire lingered smell of smoked knucklefish. He entered unnoticed among traders of salt cod and seal pelts. His cloak changed hue, stained by chalk dust gleamed from limestone cliff. Eyes cast downward to mimic humble scribe. He rented cot in alehouse near Wolf's Den ruin, listening to talk of free northern lords muster, of strange men in black arriving from Eastwatch, of winter fairs cancelled as cold deepened. That night, lights flickered along battlements. Horns called gates shut. Jaqen donned dirk and step-sound slippers, slipping from alehouse into labyrinth of alleys smelling of fish brine and tanner's lye. He moved with currents of night, letting them carry him to paths seldom guarded. A drainage culvert beneath seawall rumored to weep at low tide. He found opening half submerged, timed breath with retreating wave, slipped inside. Within damp tunnel he sensed presence ahead. Soft footfalls, someone else using same secret. He melted within shadow of arch just as a figure darted by, small, wiry, hooded in brown. In glimmer of lantern shard he glimpsed face. Narrow, eyes gray as storm ice, mouth set in line of purpose. Arya Stark. No, the wolf-blooded girl grown to edges of womanhood but still slender as promise. She vanished up ladder, Jake, and followed, slower, letting echoes fade. Ladder ended in storeroom inside old keep, barrels, crates, spiderweb. Torch flickered on far wall where secret door half ajar. Through slit he saw Arya confronting Lord in maester robes. No, disguised maester, eyes too hard. Man reached for dirk. Arya wove water dance pattern, needle-thin sword flashing. Blood-dotted stone like red petals. The Lord collapsed. Arya wiped blade, scanning gloom with feral alertness. Her gaze touched door crack. She stilled. For heartbeat two predators scented each other. Then she eased into stance of readiness. Come out, she said softly, or I come in. Jaqen pushed door open, palms empty. A girl dances well, he said. Her pupils widened. Recognition sparked. You, he inclined head. A man promised to guide on day guide was needed. What day is that? This night. He motioned to corpse. Many faces hide wolf's bane. Girl trims rot, yet root remains. North bleeds under false friends. Arya pulled hood back, revealing choppy hair streaked with snowmelt. I'm here for ships, for men loyal to Jon. Some lords still play fry games, sell grain. Lord Glover's kin meeting here. She nudged corpse with toe. He planned to poison our envoy. Then balance we share. She frowned, water dance stance loosening. I'm not your student anymore. Not student but blade. Every blade must be honed, else nick when deepest cut required. Walk with me. She hesitated. Memories tumbled. Dancing master of King's Landing. Coin of Jaqen Hagar sliding into palm. Temple corridors echoing with pleas for mercy. She exhaled, steeled heart. Where? Into shadow between crowns, Jaqen answered, producing small mask carved from driftwood, unadorned. Not to hide you, but to remind you, you choose face. He offered. Arya accepted, free hand shaking a moment before gripping still. We finish what's here first. Indeed, together they hid body in cask of brined onions awaiting export. Salt would mask blood. They replaced ledger pages to frame rival as culprit, leaving evidence of mismanaged stores that would unravel conspirators' networks silently once Dawn's audits began. Before separating, Arya studied Jaqen's profile in lamplight. Why help the North? House Stark is not your god. Balance, he replied, and debt. To me, to dance. Words settled like falling snow. Next weeks unfolded like tapestry slowly unrolling. Arya infiltrated councils, wearing faces Jaqen helped tailor. Fishmonger boy by day, Manderly guard by dusk, anonymous none of the seven by full moon. Together they dismantled spiderweb of treasons in White Harbor. Corrupt quartermasters selling winter stores to slavers. A septon smuggling raven messages to Dreadfort. 3 Sellsword captains contracted to seize Lady Lyanna Mormont should she visit. Each night a silent leaf found pillow or a ledger turned to red ink. People talked of unseen wolves circling, of the stranger's breath. During daylight Jaqen met with Maester Theomore, presenting himself as itinerant healer from Essos. He offered quick-clot powder demonstration on butchered pig. The Maester, impressed, purchased small stock for city infirmary. Thus Jaqen walked infirmary halls freely, gleaning whispers from wounded soldiers and plague victims, the pulse of northern war. Arya's confidence grew. She carried faces like second skin but never let them supplant her own. She trained nightly on parapet overlooking moonlit harbor, feet sliding across frost-slick stone in Syrio steppes. Jaqen observed, correcting breathing. In gentle, out, sharper. Sometimes she sparred with him with blades tapping. She never could breach his guard, yet each bout ended closer. One eve snow fell thick as goose down, muffling bells. Arya and Jaqen crouched on roof ridge above Assembly Hall where Lord Glover and Manderly's steward debated grain levy. Below, lamplight spilled on long table where sealed documents waited. Arya fingered grappling hook. We steal signatures, forge new levy farer. Better than killing steward outright. Jaqen nodded. Arya tossed hook. It caught crossbeam. She crossed gap, Jaqen after. Inside rafters they crawled like cats. Parchment soon swapped. Yet as they departed, foot slipped, shingle cracked, noise if faint. Patrol below halted. Arya froze. Jaqen whispered, "Firefly trick." He produced foxfire mushrooms. Crushed under boot, they emitted faint green glow drifting downward like spirit motes. Guards gaped. One muttered legend of drowned ghosts returned. While they stared, assassins vanished across rooftops. Back safe, Arya laughed. A rare bright sound, releasing tension. Never thought mushrooms could scare grown men. Jaqen smiled faintly. Her laughter warmed something long dormant. Winter tightened. Ravens carried dread. The army of the dead had breached Eastwatch. Night's Watch retreated. Jon Snow flew south to raise banners. Dragons rumored above last hearth. Amid rising terror, the guild's network pivoted. Nessa orchestrated safe passage for small folk fleeing north coast. Tal supplied burning oils to holdfasts. Liara led convoys escorting orphans to Deep Den where secret shelters awaited. Harwin drilled Alder Smith and others into surreptitious militia, not to fight great wars but to protect grain and roads from bandits. At White Harbor docks shipments from the guild's river caches began arriving, grain repaying Manderly for newly fair levy he unknowingly signed. Word spread that some invisible hand balanced famine with fortune. Faith grew. One night as auroras shimmered over sea, Jaqen stood on seawall watching lights ripple, green curtains rising from inky abyss. Arya joined, bundled in bearskin cloak. "They say those lights are spears of the gods," she said. "Or swords," Jaqen replied. She considered. "Dead March," she whispered. We don't have time for balance tricks. Balance always, he said, even between life and death. She faced him. What would you have me do? Kill Night King? If path leads, she scoffed softly. Path leads through armies of corpses. Masks may walk where flesh fails. He touched driftwood mask she wore by belt. But remember, face must return to you, else you become shade before death claims body. Arya nodded, seriousness of a woman grown. In distance, horns blew from harbor. Sails approached bearing direwolf sigil. Jon's envoy returning with dragonglass cargo. War near. Arya clasped Jaqen's shoulder. Come with us to Winterfell. I must rejoin hand, he said. Bring them north too. We'll need your leaves. She smiled but eyes pled. I will send what wind carries. He squeezed her forearm, then stepped back, silhouette dissolving in falling flurries. Jaqen left White Harbor disguised as caravan guard, traveling south briefly to rally Liara and Harwin. He found them at Seven Stream Stockade where children practiced archery using straw men hung with willow leaves. Pride twined with urgency. He told them of Dead's advance, of need to redirect grain north. They saddled pack horses, escorted 50 wagons loaded with oats, salted pork, wildfire Jarstal had distilled under moonlit stills, and 30 new apprentices bearing penny whistles for code. Nessa met them at Moat Cailin Causeway with fleet of rowboats to ferry across bog channels. Her eyes shone at scope of endeavor. The guild converged like migratory birds, now larger flock. By time they reached Winterfell's great courtyard, dusk glinted off ramparts manned by black-cloaked watchers and stark spearmen. Snowdrifts knee-deep lined walls. Dragons perched on towers, vapor rising from nostrils. The convoy's arrival stirred amazement. Few had expected supply lines still alive. Lady Sansa greeted Liara at gate. Bran the three-eyed raven watched from wheelchair, eyes pale and distant. Harwin knelt but Sansa bade rise, calling them friends of the north unseen. Jaqen stepped forward only to vanish into crowd, letting his pupils receive gratitude. His role remained shadow. Arya bounded down steps, hugging apprentices she recalled from White Harbor. She met Liara's gaze, recognition sparking. They spoke of 9 nights of narrow escapes and bright calls of victory in whispers. That evening feasting hall glowed, yet tension thrummed. War horns might sound before dawn. Jaqen wandered ramparts, reading winds. Tal stood beside wildfire cart, calculating ignition times should Dragonfire fail. Nessa taught stable boys to mimic owl calls, communication lines. Drums of distant dead boomed faint across fields after midnight. Snowflakes swirled in unnatural patterns. Air stank of cold so old it reeked of nothing. Jaqen felt the scale of balance shift beyond mortal ken. He touched hilt of stiletto, such blade meaningless against frost white, yet symbol anchored him. Inside Solar, Jon Snow addressed captains. Arya slipped in last, nodding to Jaqen where he stood against wall. Jon spoke of flanking, of Valyrian steel concentration, of Bran as bait in Godswood. When council ended, Arya pulled Jaqen aside. Tonight, she whispered, I know how to reach him. She held driftwood mask, its grain lines now inked in intricate spiral matching Night King's sigil. Jaqen frowned. He had not carved that. She tapped his chest. You said faces are doors. I walk through. He wanted to protest but recognized determination heavier than steel. Then dance with water, not ice. Water freezes too, she said, smirking. He pressed into her palm vial of Tal's flame-burst oil. Last breath if needed. She nodded, then vanished into corridor. Jaqen watched candle gutter, feeling tide of destiny crest. He closed eyes, murmured prayer in tongue older than Valyria, offering life so others might hold theirs. When he opened them, he sensed presence. Kindly man's memory, whispering approval. Snowstorm raged. Horns blew thrice. Dead approached. Jaqen placed mask upon face, bland visage of anonymous sentinel. He blended into throng of soldiers along eastern wall, guiding them silently. Nudge here, gesture there, reposition of scorpion bolt.
Nessa darte da cross parape, relaim.
Harwin led rookies to hold courtyard choke. Liara perched atop bell tower with dragon glass arrows. Battle exploded. White tide of whites crashing against stone, dragonfire illuminating night turquoise and gold. Screams, clash, shattering ice. Amid chaos, Jaqen moved like slipstream, marking commanders losing nerve, replacing them by subtle prod or whisper, "Hold line." He slit throats of panicked men about to open Sally Gate. Leaf left on tongue as sign. Hours blurred. Snowfields became charnel pit. Somewhere in Godswood Arya breathed the Night King's chill. Elsewhere purple fire blossomed across dead ranks where Tal's vials shattered. Dragons roared overhead. Then, a roar of shattering crystal echoed. Wind ceased. Whites collapsed mid-stride. Silence rolled like wave. Hearts pounded. Jaqen stood on rampart, frost-crusting lashes. Dawn's first light touched horizon. Painting field rose. He exhaled plume. Below, Arya emerged from Godswood. Blade slick with black-blue gore. Mask split in half dangling from belt. She met Jaqen's eyes across distance. Lifted 2 fingers to brow, lips, heart. He mirrored. Balance restored, if only for moment. After pyres burned and dead's ashes mingled with snow, Guild's convoy distributed last grain among survivors. Songs soared of faceless saviors who walked night with wolves. Winterfell's people told tales of leaf-marked mercy. Yet Guild faded again. Less than fortnight later, the first hand departed before sunrise, leaving behind whistles and whispered training. Arya sought Jaqen at break of day but found only driftwood mask perched on training dummy, words carved inside. A gift of many faces returns to one who is no one yet herself. She smiled, tears freezing on cheeks. Jaqen and his hand traveled south, not for glory but to prune new rot rising from ashes. Southern lords scheming war of succession, Iron Bank demanding debts, balance endless. On moonlit ridge far from castles, Jaqen paused. He unfolded map, marking next leaf. Behind him first hand waited, dozens now each carrying own apprentice. The guild had become forest. He looked west where sea shimmered, east where bravos dreamed, north where auroras faded. Then he folded map, tucked into cloak. Vala Dohiris, he said. Forest of assassins answered in one breath, and together they stepped into shadow, blades of quiet mercy against turmoil of men. Snowmelt coursed down Winterfell's gutters in slow rivulets, steam rising where dragonfire had scorched the stone. The stench of burned flesh mingled with pine resin as crews hacked apart the last of the frozen corpses outside the walls. Dawn painted the castle towers with a pallid gold, fragile as hope after nightmare. In the shattered courtyard, Liara helped a limping pikeman pry shattered ice from the hinge of the southern gate. Each crack of his crowbar echoed like distant thunder beneath the quiet roll of victory songs that had sprung up around the blazing pyres. The stark banners still snapped high, yet every gust shook gray flakes from their cloth as if reminding all that winter's claws were not yet sheathed. Inside the great hall, Jon Snow leaned over a frost-splotched map of the north, candlelight quivering on his grave face. Davos Seaworth and Tormund Giantsbane flanked him, eyes shadowed by exhaustion. Bran stared from the hearth's edge, gaze distant, hands folded in his lap like a fledgling king carved from pale driftwood. Sansa sifted parchments, ram horn seals from Reed, bear prints from Mormont, the eagle of Deepwood Mott, each offering men, grain, or simply prayer. Into this hush strode Arya, cheeks wind-chapped, boots caked in soot from the Godswood. "We have 3 days' grace," she announced, voice low. "The dead are ash or shards, the wounded tended. After that, winter and hunger march again. We can't sit here waiting for Cersei's backstab." Jon's gray eyes flicked from map to sister. "I'll ride south once the wounded can march. The Dragon Queen prepares her host at Moat Cailin." "And who guards the north?" Sansa asked. Arya glanced toward doorway where no guards posted. Gray hall shadows framed the open arch like dark, patient jaws. "We have friends unseen." Jon half smiled at cryptic reassurance before turning to Bran. "What says our brother?" Bran's voice felt older than the cracks in the hall. "Storms gather in the south and in the minds of men. But threads twist westward, old debts unsettled, sharp as needles. Arya's jaw tensed at the mention of needles. She bowed briefly and departed without further word, cloak swirling. In the abandoned kennels, Harwin and Nessa inspected crates newly hauled from the guild's convoy. Wildfire casks green-glowed beneath canvas. Dragonglass arrowheads filled leather satchels like obsidian seeds. Harwin checked the iron grates one last time, then locked the heavy door, trusting the kennel's thick stone to blunt any careless spark. Tal crouched in shadowed corner, stirring mortar of pale herbs. When Liara joined them, he whispered, 9 barrels accounted, for to remain. 5 ride south for King's Host. He sprinkled snow over the medicine, an old Riverland's trick to keep bittersweet scent from carrying. Liara nodded. And apprentices? Corlin escorts the wagons. Alder refits arrowheads. Arms still healing but mind quick. Harwin cleans soot from beard ends. We ride with Stark Host or slip ahead? Neither, Nessa replied. The stranger beckons in King's Landing sooner than any army. She unfurled coded scroll Jaqen had left upon departing. A single drawn leaf, stem pointing to river delta carved beside a crowned lion. The root regrows. Liara took one long breath. The air tasted of smoke and iron.
Lan está rot. Tal corkt bials.
Then we cut west before the host moves. Silent, small. Harwin's hand rested upon hilt. And Jaqen. Shadow on another road, Nessa said, eyes glinting. But the door stands open. 3 nights later, the first hand departed Winterfell in darkness deep enough to swallow torchlight. They left by postern beyond the new trench lines, through pines still glittering with star ice. Their horses paced in muffled strides over needle-strewn ground southwest toward the Green Fork. Ravens watched from skeletal branches but uttered no cry. Some instinct told them these figures served a master older than their own croaking deities. 1 night became 5 as the assassins threaded war-scarred riverlands. Harwin's enormous frame shielded them from roving bandits who mistook him for wandering bear. Liara's arrow felled 2 wolves grown desperate enough to stalk men. Tal bribed a Wainwright in salt pans with poppy seed draft to secure ferry across the Trident. Nessa stole redgrass cloaks from Fry deserters to cloak their trail in rumor that rogue Lady Stoneheart bands prowled again. They reached Maidenpool under sleet. Their rumors cracked like whips. Euron Greyjoy's Iron Raiders had seized Fair Isle. Cersei's Sellswords blitzed the Blackwater fields. The Golden Company marched on Rosby. Lord Randall Tarley held the Mander in iron grip, strangling grain flow north. Everywhere small folk spoke of dragons as distant storm clouds, heavy with unspent fury. Nessa traced a dagger tip over tavern table scrawled with crude map. Balance teeters.
Harwin drained Ale.
Teeter or toppled? Teeter, Tal answered, returning from apothecary with fresh files. Topple when gold meets flame. Our job, tilt. Liara's eyes settled on bulletin nailed to beam. A scribbled warrant. Faceless symbols for wanted killers, price in Lannister gold. Someone in King's Landing sensed the leaf again. She flicked warrant. Paper fluttered, landing on hearth coals. They fear ghosts. Harwin smiled. Then haunt. Outside King's Landing, the Rose Road had become a slow-moving serpent of refugees dragging wagons of hay and bed frames. Monks chanting at intervals, Sellswords jostling for bribes. The first hand slipped among them disguised. Tal as barefoot Septon bandaging wounds with thin mercy. Liara as milk cow drover. Nessa merchant girl flogging glass bookends. Harwin, a mute quarryman whose sled bore rocks for high Septon's new steps. Beneath rags, each carried hidden steel and a single willow leaf. They entered the city near dusk when goldcloaks were drunk on sentinel wine and grateful not to search too closely. Evening bells tolled over the rooftops, rattling pigeons from the eaves. Smoke coiled from chimneys where rich folk burned cedar to mask the odor of latrines. The war smell that never washed away. The guild's old sept sanctuary lay razed, only rubble now patrolled by sparrows. But Jaqen's letter had marked a new sanctum, an abandoned counting house within the Street of Flower, its ledger rooms gutted by fire years prior. They arrived by ones and twos, descending through warps of beam bones into cellar where dust drifted like ash of forgotten victories. Tal lit stub of tallow, revealing Jaqen's handiwork. A carved stranger face etched into wall, eyes hollow and waiting. Beneath, a basin held still water, a message scratched in Valyrian runes. Cut quick, roots deep. Liara touched basin rim with gloved finger. He knows we came. Harwin shifted crates to erect makeshift table. Which root first? Gold, Nessa said. She produced rumor ledger. Cersei's new master of coin. Ser Giles Rosby's cousin, Paxson, rumored to hoard treasury vouchers within Tower of the Hand. Without silver, Sells words fragment. Without Sells words, lion cub muse alone. Tal added, but cut Paxson wrong and treasury seals scatter. Chaos spreads to small folk. Must rear out coin to keep be. UT freeze his personal hoard. So lords starve, soldiers eat. Liara flashed half-smile. Operation Pigeon Purse. Harwin grunted amusement. And High Septon's tongues that wag rebellion? Heard he meets Sellsword captains nightly to bless cause. Balance, Nessa said. Perhaps tongue sleeps. They formed plan by candle sputter. Dust motes shifted like specters listening. 2 days later, festivities for King Tommen's name day choked the square before Sept, though Tommen himself now only figment haunting throne room. Yet Cersei used pageantry to cement rule. Jugglers tossed torches beside cages where starving lions paced. Children in rag cloaks gaped at sweetbread piles guarded by Lannister men. Harwin, disguised as Sellsword captain of the Stormcrows, was admitted to dais for toast. He clapped gauntlets, drank deeply, then slipped behind tapestry to corridor lined with crimson runners. There he changed direction, moving toward Tower of the Hand. Liara, wearing winebearer's apron, followed knights up spiral. On tray lay flagons filled with golden arbor, but one cup bore sleeping worm root, enough to fell ox for hours. She delivered to Paxson atop the tower while he gloated over ledgers. He drank. Within minutes his eyelids fluttered. He collapsed across parchment, quill scribbling final line in blot of ink. Tal emerged from hidden alcove, dipped signet ring in soft wax to stamp a forged writ. Treasury instructions redirecting half Sellsword payments to royal kitchens by express order of her grace. He slid writ into voucher chest, locked it, replaced key on Paxson's belt. Harwin hoisted the unconscious man upright, perched him in chair as though dozing. A heavy ledger balanced on chest disguised rhythm of breathing. Meanwhile, Nessa navigated basilica corridors beneath September of Baelor wearing novices white. High Septon conversed with Golden Company envoys inside antechamber walled by stained glass. She listened, recording code phrases in memory, shipment schedules, secret passphrase. At a pointed moment she knocked, offering almond cakes. The Septon waved envoys out. Cake filling masked Tal's special chamomile blend. Sedative mild enough to simulate stroke. Septon's pulse slowed. Nessa caught him, lowered to cushions, arranged candles in prayer circle. When brothers discovered him 20 minutes later, they assumed divine wrath for greed. Envoys found audience cancelled. Nightfall swathed kings landing in purple bronze haze. Bells rang to muster city watch for riot control after false rumor of poisoned bread among small folk. But the guild already melted away, leaving only whispers and ledger anomalies that would unravel Sellsword loyalty within days. Far across city, in silk-draped throne room, Cersei studied ravens while Qyburn scribbled. Reports of grain caravans arriving from northern guild lines troubled her. Stark credit notes stamped with willow leaves replaced Lannister coin in markets. Someone funneled resources beneath her gaze. She ordered Red Keep archivists to compile every mention of leaf killings. Qyburn's dark eyes glittered. Patterns suggest coordinated organization. Bravosi roots. Then cut them, she hissed. Spiders scuttled. Ravens flew. At Guild Sanctum Tal and Liara charted effect. Within weeks Sellswords refused half pay, demanding gold not bread. Treasury scrambled, raided tax stores, but coins still missing. Rerouted to keep's own kitchens, ironically feeding foot soldiers loyal by stomach. Meanwhile, High Septon's incapacitation nullified mercenary blessings. Pious men urged withdrawal of church support for war. Rumor blamed divine censure, fracturing zeal. Yet Jaqen's second message reached them via street urchin. A pebble wrapped in parchment dropped through counting house grate. Only 4 words. Lion bleeds, viper waits. They imagined Dorne. Nessa decoded broader strategy. As Lannister strength ebbed southward, Martell forces might strike for revenge, but chaos could birth slaughter of innocents. The guild's role: channel vipers bite toward crown, away from small folk. Thus Nessa and Harwin rode disguised as traders along Rose Road to Bitterbridge, bearing casks of southern red laced with whisper dust potent enough to paralyze without killing. They sought Willis Tyrell's secret emissary rumored to negotiate Dornish alliance. Meanwhile, Liara returned north through woods near Golden Grove to intercept Raven stations, leaving counterfeit parchments redirecting Tyrell levies toward farms rather than warfront. Tal remained in city, tutoring orphans at a plague hospice off Muddy Way. One girl, Briennia, displayed prodigious memory, reciting every merchant debt she overheard from Cots. Tal taught her to encode numbers into children's skipping rhymes. Soon the guild possessed map of Lannister creditors, each not another choke. He also visited Paxson, recovering yet frail. Tal, disguised as Silent Maester, changed the man's wound dressings, whispering dreams of coin devouring men. Each night Paxson sweated, half fearful, half guilty. When he at last emerged to small council, he proposed debtor amnesty to ease riots, inadvertently further draining treasury. Qyburn eyed him like specimen. Cersei smirked behind Chalice. Beyond walls, Jaqen moved unseen along storm-beaten cliffs of Crackclaw Point, tracking rumor of Ironborn incursion. He wore face of humble pilgrim, staff tapping, but beneath plain tunic glinted slender stiletto and driftwood mask tucked under belt. On crest of hill overlooking Dunfort he found campfires, sigil of Euron's trident crown. Ships in bay belched smoke. Villages burned. Jaqen crept into sleeping camp, his steps tracing water dance arcs between tents. He passed drunken reavers snoring around casks. At command pavilion, Euron's quartermaster sprawled drunk over chest of plunder. Jaqen slipped inside. A single willow leaf placed upon chest. Next heartbeat blade kissed heart, quick and sure. He spilled oil around charts, set flame, departed with shadow flicker. Ships below caught blaze as sparks rained onto pitchline decks. Morning found ironborn hulls turned to smoldering ribs. Survivors swore ghost killed quartermaster, left leaf upon charred helm. Balance. In King's Landing, riots burst over bread taxes. Gold cloaks stretched thin. Amid chaos, Cersei summoned Pycelle's replacement Archmaester to brew wildfire but found Alchemy Guild looted, key artificers missing, abducted by unknown mice. Those mice now brewed modest vials for Tal beneath counting house cellar. Liara scaled red keeps cliff face just before dawn, leaving rope for later exfiltration. She infiltrated Queen's solar roof beam, overheard secret letters to Golden Company. Demand they strike Dragonstone and capture Daenerys' youngest dragon rumored wounded during Northern Battle. She relayed message by carrier pigeon to Jaqen's network. Within 2 days, a willow leaf coin found its way into Strickland's paymaster chest. Parchment inside claimed golden dragons on reverse side cursed. Any bearer doomed to die at sea. Superstition spread through Sellsword ranks, causing desertions. Nessa returned from south bearing satchel of parchments revealing Tyrell larders redirected to peasants via unknown arrangement. She grinned, telling how Willis's steward looked perplexed discovering barns emptied but scribbled receipts signed by his own seal, forged by Liara as practice. The Tyrell host turned inward to quell hunger riots rather than advance on capital. Viper thus directed not at peasantry but starved of impetus. Guild's hand tightened, but Qyburn persisted. His little birds traced sedation routes back to distant apothecaries. One ragged boy glimpsed Tal in alley, recognized tattoo of Royner River swirl on wrist. The boy squealed to Qyburn, who dispatched black-cloaked brutes. They ambushed Tal outside hospice. At first blow he spun, flinging vial. Dust exploded, blinding attackers, but cudgel clipped his shoulder, bone cracking. Tal dashed through fish market, blood dripping, ducked into culvert leading to counting house. Harwin hauled him inside. Liara stitched flesh, slipping herbs between clenched teeth. They saw Tel rasped. My face. Nessa bit lip. Qyburn will scour city. Then we depart. Harwin folded arms. Liara shook her head. Not yet. Lion still breathes. Tal grasped her wrist, eyes burning. Breath we can pierce. But we need Jaqen. As if whispered by fate, footsteps sounded in stairwell. Jaqen emerged, hood sifted with road dust, gaze sweeping cellar. A man hears need. He knelt beside Tal, applied paste of ground willow bark and mint, binding wound. Balance ready for final cut. They gathered round. Qyburn's birds speak too loud, Jaqen said. Cut tongue, head follows. Tonight we pluck root. Plan wove quick. Liara on rooftops, guiding route. Harwin inside dungeons to free alchemists. Nessa intercepting Ravenry Tower to snare Qyburn's Raven Ledger. Tal, though wounded, to brew flash powder distraction. Jaqen to find Qyburn himself. Night fell violet. Bells told curfew, but these shadows ignored. Liara raced across slate tiles, scattering cats. She signaled by mirror flash. Harwin, disguised as night soil carrier, entered postern under tower of the hand with bribe of strong wine. Once inside, he knocked out guard, stashed body in barrel, unlocked cell of chained pyromancers. Faces smudged with fear. He handed them small willow leaf each. Freedom for fire restrained. Meanwhile, Nessa climbed spiral of Ravenry. Her knives found throats of 2 clerks. She rifled cabinets, plucked scroll listing every secret informant in city. Names Qyburn charted. She salted inkpots with acid. Letters dissolved into mush. Ravens beat wings as she opened shutters, releasing them to sky. Messages lost. In torchlit corridor near hands, Solar Jaqen walked as Qyburn's own hooded assistant, mask replicating young apprentice's face. He brought tray of instruments, said needed cleaning. Inside, Qyburn bent over dissected raven, searching for trace of choked seed powder. Cersei paced, hair piled like molten gold, rage simmering. Just find them, she snarled. Jaqen set tray on table. When Qyburn turned, eyes narrowed. Candles flickered. Strange chill swept room. Jaqen drew stiletto out of sleeve with motion barely visible. Qyburn gasped, clawing for bell rope. Cersei spun. Blade pierced Qyburn's throat. Blood gurgled as Jaqen whispered, Vala Morgulus. Cersei screamed, reached for wine dagger. Jaqen toppled candle cluster. Flame licked velvet drapes. He vaulted balcony, landing in courtyard. Liara's arrow severed pulley rope above stable. Lanterns crashed into hay, igniting horses into frenzy. Tal's flash powder burst near gatehouse, blinding guards. Nessa sprinted along rampart, dropping handful of raven feathers like snow. Harwin led pyromancers through Sally Port, now unguarded, each carrying secret formula only they knew. Jars of wildfire vanished into night. Within keep chaos blossomed. Cersei's shriek echoed through halls. Flames crawled, servants panicked. By dawn, smoke billowed from tower windows, but firebreak held. The keep stood, yet heart of Qyburn's network dead with him. Ravens gone, pyromancers freed, Cell's words unpaid, Septon silent. Lion's roar reduced to coughing fit. Guild regrouped in dawn fog by rush crossing. Tal leaned on Liara but smiled faint. Harwin's cloak singed. Nessa's hair dusted with soot. Jaqen untouched, eyes reflecting sunrise. Balance, Liara asked. Shifts, Jaqen replied. Now dragon and wolf may speak without viper's hiss. He faced them. Our forest grows. Each of you lead branch. Liara, Riverlands leaves. Harwin, Stormwatch. Tal, Healer's Network. Nessa, Whisper routes east. A man returns to Bravos. Doors call again. Harwin frowned. Will we see you? Faces meet when needed. Jaqen held out palm. Each placed willow leaf upon it. He closed fist, released into river. Leaves spun in eddies, drifting toward sea.
Talbauth.
Vala Dohiris. Vala Morgulus, they answered. Jaqen turned, silhouette fading into rising mist. Months rolled like distant thunder. At Dragonstone Conclave, Jon Snow and Daenerys received courier wearing wolf pin and leaf insignia. King's Landing ready for negotiation, Cersei's troops starving, Golden Company mutinous, wildfire stockpiles mysteriously depleted. They sailed with armies but found gates opened by commoners chanting of quiet mercy. Cersei surrendered throne for promise her youngest still living child be spared. She never learned whose invisible blade had ensured that promise by earlier removing nameless assassins plotting to kill boy prince. On midsummer morn Arya knelt in God's wood of Winterfell, breathing pine. Driftwood mask hung from branch above. She whispered thanks. Deep in braids of leaves unseen wind answered, soft and sure. In distant free city of bravos, within house of black and white, kindly man paused by pool of still water. Ripples traced leaf pattern, although no leaf fell. He smiled, maybe. Expression flickered like candle. Balance endures, he murmured. And in every alley of Westeros where injustice thrived, small folk sometimes found a single willow leaf upon windowsill at dawn, and they spoke with hush of guild that danced in twilight, faceless but true, trimming wrought so realm might breathe. Children practiced water steps in puddles, tracing graceful arcs. Mothers taught them rhyme of quiet mercy. The guild had become more than shadows. It was rumor shaped into guardrail of fate. Liara guided convoys south feeding war orphans. Harwin oversaw network of smiths forging tools not weapons. Tal opened hospice in Maidenpool, distilling mercy draft for those beyond healing. Nessa sailed east disguised as spice trader, mapping slave routes for later severing. In each venture they recruited one more, and another faces many purpose one. Far away in Bravos, Jaqen gazed through temple doorway at sunrise bleeding over lagoon. He no longer wore any mask, yet his eyes held countless tides. A novice approached, bowing to return freshly carved face. Jaqen set it among collection. For moment light glimmered on driftwood mask left empty. Its hollow eyes watched world, waiting for next dancer to dawn. All men must serve, and some must guide. Balance, ever shifting, demanded both. In lull between storms Jaqen closed eyes, hearing distant laughter of a wolf-blooded woman riding southwind, the hush of leaves, the hush of blades, the eternal music of the guild he had planted in war-torn soil. He bowed head not to gods nor kings but to that quiet melody, then stepped forward into cool hall where candles waited to be lit, voices to be stilled, paths to be shown. Outside, the city bell tolled dawn. On its final reverberation, a willow leaf drifted down from unseen height, twirling upon breeze to land upon canal. It spun once, twice, then sailed beneath marble bridge, carrying with it promise that as long as injustice rose anew, so too would the dancers of quiet mercy, unseen yet ever present, carving truth from shadow with the gentlest cut of all. The gull-ribbed wind that scudded across Bravos carried scents of brine and hot lamp oil and the faint iron tang of ambition. Jaqen Hagar, still wearing no mask, yet housing 1,000, walked the marble colonnade that ringed the house of black and white's reflecting pool. Tiny ripples shivered across its obsidian surface as if stirred by some thought long unspoken. The kindly man had hinted that the guild's western branch stood at a crossroads. Sever the new growth or bind it tighter to the trunk? Jaqen felt every heartbeat of that question echo inside his ribs like soft knocks on a locked door. He paused beside the basalt bench where novices scraped wax from extinguished tapers and caught the faintest reflection of his own face. Unremarkable, ungilded, floating over the waters. In the tremor of candle glow, another visage flared behind it. Arya Stark's half-smile, wolf-sharp, then Liara sighting along a nocked arrow, Tal bent over a glass retort, Harwin's vast silhouette, Nessa's darting eyes. He closed his own, and the faces winked out one by one like candles pinched between thumb and forefinger. The pool stilled. Footsteps whispered. A girl called Verena knelt, pressing forehead to flagstones. "The Iron Bank's triarchs send parchment," she murmured, voice a reed in dusk. Jaqen accepted the scroll. Red wax bore a sigil of 3 interlocking keys. The ribbon smelled of saffron and smoke. Within, a single sentence flowed in precise Valyrian script. "Debts unpaid breed regrets 20-fold." Beneath, a list of names, lending officers, collateral agents, secret creditors, all circled in bright vermilion. Each name ended with flared serif like a spear tip. Whoever penned it wanted those lives ended, and quickly. Jaqen reread, pulse slow. The Iron Bank had always dealt in absolutes. This list stank of internal purge, a move to silence those who had funneled coin to Cersei's doomed war. If the faceless men answered, they would become the bank's bloody auditors. If they refused, the bank might unleash Sel's words upon their houses, blaming the guild's revolt in Westeros. Either path twisted the branch. He lifted candle stump, let wax drip across the waxen seal until it resembled melted flesh. Then he blew out the flame. "A man will answer," he said to Verena, "but not with steel. Summon Collio the Tallymaster." Collio's gaunt frame arrived before moonrise, parchment-pale skin stretched over Banker's bones. In the silent hall he bowed many times, sweat collecting at his temples. "The bank has accounts unsettled," Jaqen observed. "Gold bled from our vaults into Lannister coffers," Collio croaked. "We intend to cauterize the wound. By cutting throats of men who signed parchments they were ordered to sign?" Collio's smile was brittle glass. "Obedience does not absolve cost. We purchase your silence as well as your steel." He slid purse across stone. Coin inside barely clinked, so thick the gold. Jaqen did not touch it. "A different price." Collio stiffened. "Name it." "Ships. 3 galleys swift as rumor, holds empty but for grain and seed. Crews sworn to sail under our leaf." The banker blinked. "Merchandise, not murder?" "Balance," Jaqen murmured. "Kill greed with generosity. Let coins you lost feed the realm you bled." Collio weighed words like ingots. At length he nodded, though his jaw clenched as if biting down on lead. The bank honors trades concluded. They wrote fresh ledgers under drifting torchlight, each clause sealing gold into grain, steel into tillers, war into bread. When Collio departed, Jaqen swept gold purse into deep cistern beneath altar, an offering to faces unnamed. The water made no sound as it swallowed the weight. Across the narrow sea in wind-blown camp near Tumbleton, the Sellsword queen of the company, Orinna the Hawk, reheated stale barley stew when a messenger with willow leaf circlet demanded audience. Orinna hissed at her guards but bid them let the stranger pass. The courier produced charter stamped by Iron Bank. 3 galleys assigned to Hawk Company in exchange for escorting grain north. Terms promised salvage rights along coast, smaller risk than storming castles. Orinna frowned. War's profit was dwindling, men grumbled for pay. Grain run might keep coffers tinkling until bigger feast. She spat into dust, forming a muddy leaf. "Tell your ghost employer the hawk flies north at dawn." Thus the first seed of Jaqen's bargain took wing. Deep within the wolfswood, Liara threaded between alder trunks mantled in snowmelt. Dawn spears of sunlight tossed copper coins across forest floor as she stalked her quarry. A Bravosi courier brave or foolish, enough to fleece northern clans with.
Counterfeit stark Tellis.
2 days earlier a child starved because of his deception. That tipped the scale. Her arrowhead kissed back of the man's neck just as he squatted to relieve himself beside a sap-green pool. Clean, merciful, swift, she dipped 1 willow leaf in his blood, pinned it to his ledger, and left body for wolves. By noon she reached a secret clearing where apprentices practiced silence. Corlin balanced on birch limb, loosing arrows at moving logs swung by rope. Brienne scribbled cipher on ice slab, eyes shuddered to recall dozens of debt routes. Alder, the one-armed smith, hammered arrowheads atop flat granite, sparks jittering like fireflies even in daylight. Liara watched, satisfied. This branch flourished. A shadow stepped from tree line, Harwin, cloak spattered with hoof mud. "Courier dead?" Liara nodded. 3 heartbeats ago. He grunted approval, handed her scroll stamped with small carved mask. Jaqen's. She sliced seal with fingernail.
Gringalet en route.
Hawk Company escort. "We guard them across Bight," Harwin said. "Need arrow eyes on rigging." "Done." At Maidenpool Hospice, Tal finished distilling final draft of Winter's Mercy when Raven landed on sill, willow cord around ankle. He read Jaqen's cipher, Iron Bank pays seed. Below, list of plague-ridden hamlets along Blackwater Rush designated to receive first grain shipments. Tal packed medical satchels, told Briennia to tend wards. She nodded solemnly, then slipped vial of Quick-Clot into his belt without words. He pressed her hand. Promise of return. Nessa rode salt-scoured deck of Hawk ship Storm Swift as gulls shrieked starboard. Soldiers stacked burlap sacks heavy with wheat beside piles of unstrung bows. Grain above war. Arinna the Hawk squinted at the Dornish assassin through wind-blown hair. You and your leaf order trick many, she said. But can your silent blades gut storms? Storms respect no blade, Nessa replied, scanning slate sky. We ride them, not fight. Night fell. Seas built iron shoulders. Galleys plunged into troughs. In hold stank of wet grain. Rats scratched. Suddenly bell clanged, lookouts alarm. Ahead 3 black sail longships crossed moon-washed swells. Iron Kraken painted on prow. Euron's reavers escaped Crackclaw disaster hunting new plunder. Arinna barked orders. Storm Swift angled windward but reavers closed. Violent clash of hulls. Grapnels bit. Ironborn poured over rails. Hawk soldiers locked shields, but tide of axes churned ranks. On quarterdeck Nessa slashed belly of first raider, then flitted off rail as corpse pitched into foaming dark. More climbed. She darted between, daggers flickering moonlight into throats. Below, Tal kept to infirmary, until shriek of splintering boards. Raider hacking door. Tal hurled vial. Glass shattered, releasing swirls of blue mist that clamped lungs. Raider fell coughing blood. Tal dragged him inside, bound wound, pressed mix of milk of poppy and tears of liss. Mercy even for foes. Harwin. Aboard Sister Galley Saltwind, wielded water dance saber in one hand, boarding axe in other. He cut through iron helms, roared bear loud. When captain of Reaver ship leapt, Harwin ducked, drove axe into thigh, then whispered apology and slit throat. Liara scurried up mast rigging, knocked arrow tipped with dragonglass. Gift from north. She targeted cask of oil strapped to Reaver's deck. One arrow, spark. Barrel exploded, firestorm devouring black sails. Reavers panicked, lines severed. 2 longships broke free, limping east trailing smoke. Third rolled ablaze, hissing into sea. By dawn gulls circled charred planks. Hawks tallied 32 dead, yet grain holds untouched. Arinna clasped Nessa's forearm. Respect. She sailed on. In King's Landing grief replaced fury as Cersei interred Qyburn in marble crypt without epitaph. Grief swiftly transmuted to paranoia. Every spider might be leaf, every whisperer masked. She forbade wine-bearers, fed taster every morsel first. Yet gold dwindled. Sel's words deserted. Small folk hailed wheat shipments arriving under hawk banners. Grain cheaper than crown loaf. Cersei watched throngs cheer outside Red Keep and felt kingdom slip like sand through clenched fists. She summoned Ser Gregor, still monstrous though rumors said his seams cracked with rot, and ordered hunt of willow killers. Gregor's violet eyes gleamed behind helm. He rode into Flea Bottom, butcher's sword in hand. Innocents died. Blood pooled. Yet at dawn each slaughter site blossomed willow leaves pinned to crude drawing of a skull-headed mountain. The mountain's men muttered. Omens multiplied. Far south in Dorne, sun-bleached spires of Sunspear shimmered. The sand snakes held council over chilled pomegranate wine. Banners to raise? Tyene pressed dagger tip into table, argued aiding Stark Targaryen cause. Nymeria wanted revenge alone. Suddenly Raven landed, leaf on leg. Message, lion wounded. Viper strike now ends pain. Signed with drawn mask. Tyene's eyes shone. They mustered spears not against farmer fields but toward King's Landing itself, timing march with grain convoys to avoid starvation along route. Balance again. On lonely Braavosi quayside Jaqen watched 3 new galleys. Feather, Seedling, Quiet Mercy. Heave anchor, grain holds full. He had blessed each with silent prayer. As Keel's kissed lagoon, a novice approached. "Master," she whispered, "why send food when Iron Bank sought blood?" He rested hand on child's shaved head. "Because death is owed, yet life is interest. One must be paid first." She frowned. "Which?" "Both," he said, and turned back toward dark doorway where faces slept. Feather reached Gulltown under gentle wind. Tal supervised offload to orphan hostels half empty of beds. Children sang leaf rhyme learned from traveling mummers. Tal left vials of cough tonic, spent evening teaching healers' apprentices to read infection by tongue color. One girl asked if he feared plague. He smiled, touched her cheek with gloved finger. "Fear guides, mercy steers." He rode north next dawn, half-healed shoulder aching but purpose guiding rain. Seedling docked at White Harbor. Liara met Lord Wyman among warehouses smelling of salt cod. She bowed, offered manifests. Manderly eyes twinkled reading volumes marked free of levy. He vowed 6 new longships to escort further grain. Liara spent night atop battlements, feeling wind across sea. Somewhere below, bards crafted ballads of leaf riders. She closed eyes, praying they remembered truth, not fame. Quiet Mercy sailed upriver to Maidenpool. Harwin oversaw distribution to river hamlets. He found a boy burying sister near Burnt Orchard, placed grain loaf in child's cracked hands, taught him short prayer, "Leaf of mercy, root of strength." The boy repeated until lips stopped trembling. Harwin left arrow quiver with local militiamen. Whites were ash now, but men still hunted. Gifts sometimes better than blades. In the alleys of the capital, Nessa and Irina worked twin scheme. The Hawk Company, paid in captured jewelry and storm-swift salvage, remained bivouacked outside King's Landing, ostensibly guarding grain. In truth, their ranks swelled with refugees and petty thieves promised bread and copper. Nessa trained hand-picked dozen in water stances at dawn, teaching them to strike with wooden rods rather than steel, subduing riot provocateurs planted by Lannister loyalists, turning street violence back on Crown. Cersei's agents grew desperate. She dispatched Ser Boros Blunt with cipher bound for Euron Greyjoy, promise of marriage alliance if his fleet retook grain. Liara, perched upon Red Keep chimney, intercepted Raven, replaced message with blank parchment and willow drawing. At Eastwatch's ruins, Arya Stark paced parapet, though wind lashed ice shards across her cheeks. Ravens had carried word of the guild's grain fleets, of lions' stumble, of vipers' rise. She felt threads knot, the realm inching toward fragile peace. Yet amid wind she sensed shadow creeping. In the north, something lingered, fragments of Night King's magic perhaps, or simply grudge of winter refusing to recede. She traced needle's edge along frost-rimed stone. Ghost, pelt frostwhite, emerged, muzzle speckled crimson from fresh kill. Arya knelt, pressing forehead to direwolves. One battle ends, another waits. In dreams that night she walked halls of faces, strange since she'd long since chosen her own. But driftwood mask whispered from shelf. Doors never close. They revolve. She woke before dawn. Spring struggled southward. Buds pushed through soot-black soil where wildfire had once scorched. In King's Landing, Cersei paced throne room, crown heavy as regret. Golden Company paychests empty. Tyrell grain caravans vanished. Dorne banners rumored at stepstones. When news arrived that Iron Bank frozen its loans, she screamed until voice shredded. The leaf had bled her without drawing steel. She convened emergency council of remaining loyalists, Ser Gregor, Pyromancer Farnham, Ragged Maesters. Plan: ignite wildfire reserves beneath Flea Bottom, blame rebel grain rioters, crush dissent by terror. A young court scribe overheard, and that dusk scurried through sewer runnels to Leaf Sanctum, repeating every whispered scheme. Tal brewed fast-acting cold fire suppressant. Nessa mapped sewer valves. Harwin prepared tunneling crew. Liara coated dragonglass arrow with dampening salve. Jaqen, newly arrived under lamplighter guise, assigned roles. They moved before moon reached zenith. In torchlit vault under September of Baylor Farnham and his novices stacked wildfire jars. Gregor stood sentinel. Sewer grate lifted. Nessa rolled smoke bombs. green plumes sparked illusions of plague. Harwin crashed through wall like bear, wrestling Gregor. Steel rang. Harwin too agile. Dodged monstrous swings, slashed tendon behind knee. Gregor roared, helm hissing. Liara's arrow pierced visor slit, salve spreading across rotted flesh, numbing. Tal hurled suppressant vial onto central jar. Foam erupted, dousing fuses. Farnham fled, but Jaqen appeared, stiletto poised. Vala Morgulis, he intoned. One cut. Pyromancer bled upon unlit wildfire symbolism thick. Gregor fell, gasping curse. Harwin pressed willow leaf against mountain's brow. Quiet mercy, he whispered, and slid blade. Above, bells tolled sudden. The Dragon Queen's host at gates. Dawn tinted sky purple while Circe found vault doors wide. Plans ashes. She knew then a war never truly fought had already been lost. She ordered white flag raised moments before Unsullied breached first barricade. Daenerys and Jon entered throne room not to find Lioness defiant but Queen slumped. Crown askew. She surrendered for safe exile to Casterly Rock under oath of nonviolence. Tyrion, standing his hand to Dragon Queen, granted mercy. Balance. Weeks later markets buzzed with spring fairs fueled by grain. Willow leaves became tokens of luck. In taverns minstrels sang of quiet mercy who slew the mountain and quenched hellfire. Some claimed the stranger walked among them. Others argued ghosts were only men and women with hearts unchained. On grassy rise outside city walls, the first hand gathered round small fire. Tal's shoulder healed, hair gray to shade. Liara twirled arrow between fingers. Harwin shaved beard shorter, laughter lines deepened. Nessa carved new cipher plate of weirwood. Jaqen leaned upon driftwood staff, gaze distant. Our forest overtook garden, Harwin mused. What now? Let it grow wild, Nessa said, smiling. Wild but watched, Tal countered. Liara looked south where Dornish banners shimmered on horizon yet slowed. War unnecessary. Balance holds for now. Jaqen stirred embers with stick until sparks wove upward. Faces turned toward spring, yet shadows remain behind stones. Leave leaves where needed, draw blades only when scales tip. A guild must never crave war nor fear it. They nodded. Arya approached, cloaked in direwolf fur, ghost padding at heel. She exchanged silent greeting, thumb brushing brow, lips, heart. Jaqen echoed. I ride west, she said. Rumors of Greyjoy raiders slaving children in lonely light. Balance wants tilt. Nessa threw her willow coin. Arya caught. Harwin handed small dagger forged of dragonglass and castle steel welded. A gift. Tal offered vial of warming salve. Liara simply embraced her. As sun climbed, they mounted horses. Jaqen watched them scatter, branches bending to wind, roots anchoring deep. He felt the many-faced god's breath, neither approval nor denial, only endless turning of mask upon mask. He smiled, faint as dawn's first pale gleam. In Bravo's novices would chant leaf verse tonight. In White Harbor fishermen would toast quiet assassins. In Dorne spears would stand down. In Winterfell, wolf pups chased petals across training yard. Realm healed in layers subtle as whispers. And wherever injustice sprouted anew, a single willow leaf would drift across threshold on wind, herald of dancers unseen, mercies untold, reminding all that in the hush between heartbeat and blade, purpose endures, silent and sure, like footfalls of a faceless man walking the narrow bridge between life and death, forever balancing the scales.